Yeah, with Alex, I always find very interesting how, people who are in the margins of society, specifically in this case, trans people, they manage to, people usually think that they're usually in the clubs, they're like on events, LGBTQ events, some sort of destinations that they're obvious, you know what I mean? And they usually photograph. For me, I think it's more interesting when you find them in everyday life with confidence. They're very guarded. I think that they're very guarded, but they never stop being who they are. And I find that very interesting. And I photograph, over the decades, I photograph a lot of them. For me, it's important to photograph people in their own environmental area, where they basically grew up, hang out, work. Normal people, they're just normal people like us. But I wanted to, I always been very interested how they interact in society in general, not only in a specific, environment like an LGBTQ event, pride, clubs. These people, just like us, have a normal life. They go to work, they have families, they have friends, they gotta go to the bodega, they gotta go and get their nails done. And in the case of Alex, what I found so interesting is that number one, I'm gonna zoom over where he is. That way we could, know what we're talking about here. Um, he's right there. Can you see it? Okay. So in case of Alex, I was very fascinated by his look because it's sort of very defiant, and I like the fact that he was very confident in who he is in an area that is completely, we're talking about the area of Fordham Road, in the inner city, and it's not Fifth Avenue, and it's not a place that, people might be seen to be more acceptable. But yet he managed to navigate through the neighborhood, and I photographed him in front of the wall, on the sidewall of his job, which is Muñeca Nails, where Marc Jacobs goes and does his nails done. I found out that later on, through social media. So he's a nail artist, and I thought that he was very interesting that the way the T-shirt that he was wearing, how he used that T-shirt to self-identify herself as, transgender, and then this goes along, people don't have the resources, the money, like Caitlyn Jenner and other people that have all this, accessibility to become who they really are or they want to be. And but yet I like that identification, self-identification of who she wants to be, who she is. And of course, the nails, which is pretty outrageous. And his whole personality was just very confident. And I really admired that. I thought that was very um, worth capturing. The people that I like to photograph are people that are really confident, that they have a star quality, and they stand out in the crowd. I just thought that was very interesting to see how they interact in their own immediate community, and to my surprise and most people, I feel they're pretty accepted. They're not
That's
judged.
mhm.
Even in areas that they're considered kind of macho society, I seen that there's a level of acceptance, of LGBTQ people that I photograph over the decades. And again, the only way you only see that is if you really go out there and see it and witness it. It's not staged. I don't stage my work. I like to photograph people where they are because they are most comfortable in their own environment. And for me, it's interesting, again, it goes back to my fascination how these people stand out from the crowd, and they, might not look normal to some, but for me, there's a sense of the way they navigate through the city, there's a sense of normalcy in their own everyday life. They're just people like us, like any of us. The story about Mama is very interesting. She was photographing 2017 in Holmes Point. I was there photographing, and I turned the corner, and somebody tried to mug me, and
Oh,
I managed to kick the knife with my leg, and then I just kept walking. When you do this for decades, you're exposed to all sort of things, and it's not that I'm fearless. I'm very guarded, but definitely I'm not gonna let anybody come with a knife on me. So it was kind of a, automatic response. And I just kept walking. Was a person that was high on drugs and, in the margins of society. And, I try to be non-judgmental. Of course, I had to defend myself, but it wasn't an attack. It was just a sort of thing that happened. So I turned the corner and I saw a fire hydrant scene that I photographed over the decades, and I'm kind of known for because I captured a lot of them for the last 23 years. And I hear a voice saying, Mister, take my photo. And I turn around and there she was standing in front of this red 80s shiny wagon, and I looked and I said, well, of course. And I took the photo, I gave her my information, and I moved on to the fire hydrant scene that I had my eyes on. And it didn't really struck me as hard when I got home because I only took 2 photos of her, to be honest with you. I was just basically I basically escaped a mugging incident. And then she happened. Of course, I was very struck by her confidence. I think her confidence really struck me the most. And also the setting itself, just her confidence was the most important thing. But anyway, I got home and I looked at the photo. I'm like, oh my God, it kind of hit me that. And the same day I posted the photo on social media, a friend of mine, a collector, went crazy and she told me, this is your Mona Lisa. And next thing, she bought it. And within like, I don't know how long, it took not that long. She donated it to the Mint Museum in North Carolina. Nikki and Ari, again, I found them. Found them both. I found them in a mall in East Harlem. And then I went crazy because they were stunning and tall, really tall. I mean, like I have a photo of me right next to them. I'm 5'8". They're like 5'11". They're tall. They're very statuesque. And I was very I was very taken by their beauty because they dress in the same color but at their own style. And they're identical twins, but they wear the makeup in their own way. So that kind of fascinated me that they have that sense of self-identity without being twins, and I found that was quite admirable. But then also they had such a, most twins have a strong bond, but I always admire the bond that they have. They're like, I love how twins interact because I was born a twin, and I didn't find out that my twin died like later on in life through a birth certificate type of thing. So, I photograph a lot of twins unconsciously in a way. And so then Nikki moved to East New York, so she was kind of hard to reach. The pandemic hit, but Nikki was here in East Harlem, close to me. I live in West Harlem. So I was able to find her, and I photographed her in the laundromat. I think that the photo that I show you over in the laundromat, let me see. I think it's this way, right? No, this way. And then the photo of the laundromat, can you see it? It's right there. So I forgot Nikki first. And then after the pandemic, when Nikki Ari moved back to the city, she moved to the Bronx. And I went to the Bronx and I met them and I photographed that photo for Nikki is where she grew up and she used to do laundry, that laundromat. Okay. But then Nikki and Ari, I photographed them together because they moved. Did you see it there on the top? They moved, and that was right in the corner when Ari moved into the Bronx. And so that was the first time I photographed them together. And that was the first time that Ari was being photographed ever. So it was quite revealing. And the photo, as you know, is in 4 or 5 museums. And it was in a billboard in Los Angeles. It won a competition. It was on Melrose Avenue. It was also on a competition in Los Angeles for Association of Media Photographers. and was curated by Paul Martineau, which is the curator of the Getty, and it went into a publication. It's called Off the Clock. And so it was published in the book, and the photo is full page, which I love. And then also won a climate change done by the Climate Museum at Rockefeller Center, and it was a flag, part of the flag project. So it was hanging in the Rockefeller Center on a flag, and that day Nick and I, the three of us met. So we have a very strong bond, and I think what makes them so I think that they're twins, but I love their self-identity. But I think that the love that they have for each other kind of makes them be more like unifies them. But also the fact that they're trans women, and for it was very green and beautiful. And I think from that point, that was a key point for me, because from that point, I started to photograph LGBTQ people with nature, because I thought that they were more comfortable and it was really beautiful. So every time that I cannot do that now, I try to photograph people in more in touch with nature, because I think that sort of softens them. The environment is not so rough, and that's part of their own environment in so many ways. So it was just when everything kind of all comes together.